This is going to be a second attempt at a part 2 for this video. I'm going to be reading the introduction and chapter 1 of How to Live on Nothing by Joan, Ranson, Shortney. Introduction. When I became an editor and listened to the plaints of copywriters and editorial workers about lack of time, and listened also to their unwritten, never to be written books, I thought of my friend Vasilis writing lyrics every fair afternoon under a tree in Central Park. Mornings Vasilis swabbed out a beauty parlor, and evenings he dished soup in a greasy spoon. Gives me room and eats. What else do I need? Vasilis wrote equally well in Greek and English. We'd met when I had a sonnet on Icarus published in the New York Times. Vasilis translated it for a Greek anthology he was editing. Whenever I saw Vasilis, I was struck afresh by his radiance. He had an attribute usually given only to children. He transmuted every day into immediate happiness. That is, he did until he unaccountably got a WPA job. For that he counted trees in Flushing Meadow, which was then being converted into the world's fairgrounds. His overseer wouldn't let him write verse among the trees, so Vasilis lived the tortures of Tantalus with the unattainable wine and grapes ever in front of his lips. He bought himself new suits and graduated from 2 for a nickel to nickel cigars, and his eyes darted around like those of a trapped woodland animal. Fortunately, he soon persuaded the authorities to cross his name off the roster, and he was again able to be the shepherd of Central Park. It was a way of life I could look back on nostalgically only when I had later dipped into the flesh pots. At the time, I knew Vasilis was struggling against that way of life. My struggles led me through devious roads of underpaid jobs, at last to an editorship, and then I thought of my poet friends whittling down to bare essentials so that he might devote himself to what he wanted to create. I thought of his conscious lowering of living standards, a difficult thing to do, especially in a city like New York, where the atmosphere is electric with ambition. The peculiar thing about a standard of living is that it tends to rise like the tide as soon as you've reached your depth. Many a man makes his first 100,000 simply to get a house and a car in a fine community, only to find that once he's gained that, there's something else, like a yacht, that he needs in order to keep his social status. Quote, save on luxuries, said a wise man to me once, and you'll find that luxuries become necessities. To save money, you must save on what you consider necessities, end quote. This is not to advocate thrift for thrift's sake, nor is it the sentimentalizing of undernourishment as a source of inspiration. It is the advocacy of a method of lowering the high cost of living so you can clear the path for what you really want, namely the good life. And that is what this book is about. It is, of course, a book about living on a small income for anyone who wants to or needs to. That is, anyone who must live on a fixed small income, such as a pension, or anyone who must face a period of unemployment, or anyone who must stretch a small salary, or anyone who must watch many dollars dwindle to the value of a few, which surely includes all of us in these times. But how to live on nothing is only one side of this coin. The other is how to attain everything, how to get better use out of every dollar, better food that is actually cheaper and more attractive, better clothes, better furniture, better health, better housing for less, and even better low-price vacations, in a word, happiness. I did not realize this book in the days when I listened to Vasilis' poems, nor even in the days when, as editor, I had the first glimmerings of the idea. I had little time then to develop ideas, right? I had I had all I could do to find time to read anything but manuscripts, which occupied commuting time, spare evenings, and weekends. At odd moments, I ran our suburban house and tilled the garden. After World War II, when my husband returned safe from 2.5 years on the Pacific Front, we celebrated by buying a rundown farm in Pennsylvania. It is said that the things you do arise from deeply hidden motives, hidden to your conscious mind, that is. So with the farm. We had bought it to use it as a key to the simple life, but we didn't know that. Instead, we sped to it weekends, picking its fruit and berries, and staying up into the night after office work to make preserves and wine. A nightmare of a pace. Our friends, the Greek poet had dropped us along with other luxuries, wagged their heads and said, "You can't keep it up." We didn't have to. The magazine suspended publication. We sold our suburban house and came to the farm. Now at last my glimmering idea emerged, for we lived the book. You may object that the farm is a nice place that a farm in a nice place isn't privation or even the simple life. Call it life in more elemental terms. We have a fieldstone house, electricity, and when the pump works, running water. Other than that, we haven't much in the way of material things. We have no maid, no hired man, but we have plans for the place, and our plans, not someone else's. I am sure that should Vasilis ever read this, he will not acknowledge that I am justified in calling this book in any way about him. But since the secret of living on nothing joyfully is in taking a little time to do things that... but since the secret of living on nothing joyfully is in taking a little time to do things that the majority of people pay to have done, Vasilis' life fits neatly in a piece of mosaic into the pattern that is created by so many people I have known, and to all of them I am grateful as such, as well as to all the books that have ever instructed me, most of which I have found in the Bethlehem Public Library. To its able staff and its fine chief librarian, Miss Amy Preston, I extend my thanks. I owe gratitude also to the manufacturers and people who, in government agencies, both state and federal, who sent me books, periodicals, and technical advice. I'd like to single out for special mention here the late Helen C. Douglas, United States Department of Agriculture, Office of Information, Eugene H. Stevenson, Assistant Secretary, Council on Foods and Nutrition, American Medical Association, Mrs. R. E. Walmsley of the Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries and Food, London, England. I'm grateful to my family and friends for their encouragement and generous help. Most of all, I'm grateful to my husband who, through his skill and wisdom and happy spirit, enabled me to live my part in this book. Wherever you live, wherever it is in the country whether it is in the country or in the city, the basic good life is simply the way you arrange it. We hope this book helps you arrange it in the way you want it to be. Chapter 1. How to Keep from Starving. On little more than pin money, 80-year-old Jerry has had a full life, including 10 children. A widower, Jerry has brought up his children single-handedly. Jerry started building a house for himself when he was 68, working alone until he had it finished around his 70th birthday. You can't build much outdoors in winter, he explained. Besides winters, I had to paint to raise money for the material. Jerry is an ex-carriage painter. Through years he spent striping carriages. He can still paint a straight line freehand, skill he utilizes. Since the buggy's disappearance in decorating furniture, trays, beer mugs, and knickknacks. The episode of Jerry's life that that fits into this chapter concerns one of his impulsive visits to his youngest daughter, Violet, on a bright May afternoon. Violet, her husband Alfred, their 6-year-old Marcia, and 7-year-old David live in a suburb 10 miles from Jerry's house. He can and does often reach their swanky development in a couple hours walking. His family prefers Jerry's walking to his eccentric driving. Although Jerry maintains that their preferences are based on aesthetics, since he used a house painting brush to color his car bright blue. On this visit, Jerry found his grandchildren and his daughter crying in the front room, an empty space where the TV had prefaced Violet's sobbed tale of Alfred's business failure, the mounting bills, the relentless and simultaneous descent upon them of all the time payments. Jerry's only comment was to ask at the end, "How's about making your old father a cup of coffee and getting something for yourself and the kids? Cheer us up." "Oh, Dad," Violet wailed, "the coffee's all gone. I have to work up my courage to face the grocer. We have such a bill there." "In that case," said Jerry briskly, "you must be my dinner guest. I'll make the dinner here. Get busy and fill that empty space with some of this other furniture so you don't have the spot staring you in the face until you get another TV. And let me have some paper bags." Without question, Violet gave her father the paper bags. Jerry's children took his powers for granted because, mysteriously, like Father Divine, he had found a way to live without money. When Jerry had taken his grandchildren out of the mother's earshot, he gave to them each a bag. "See those dandelions, kids? Put the leaves into your bags and pack them down. If you have your bags full when I return, I'll give you something." Jerry thumbed a ride home. He stopped at his house only long enough to get his car, his paints, some cowslip wine he'd made last year, and a bag of mushrooms he'd gathered that morning in the woods. He'd hesitated to bring them to Violet because he suspected Alfred would fear they were toadstools if he knew they were wild. When Jerry drove his Tin Lizzie down the dusty driveway of Bert's farm, Bert and Stella, having been up since 4 a.m., were having supper. Jerry allowed himself to be persuaded to have a piece of strawberry shortcake and a cup of coffee before he started to paint their mailbox, a job he'd promised months before. By the time it was decorated with birds, flowers, and the family name, Jerry had in payment 2 dozen fresh eggs, a gallon of milk, a stewing chicken, and a sack of rye kernels, 1 of wheat kernels, and 5 pounds of new potatoes. While Stella picked strawberries fresh from the patch for him, Jerry weeded the garden, putting the weeds into his paper sacks. Alfred's sparkling new car was in their garage by the time Jerry pulled up at his daughter's. He found his grandchildren telling their father how one of the neighbors had given each of them a nickel and helped them pick dandelions out of his lawn. Jerry added to their profits by giving them each a Banty egg Bert had given him for them. To Alfred he gave the frosty, pale, professional-looking bottle. "Wine for dinner?" Jerry put the chicken in the refrigerator for the next day's fricassee, and an hour later he served mushroom omelet, new potatoes, sweet sour greens, in parentheses, dandelions sautéed in oil with sugar and salt in the Chinese manner, in parentheses, steamed shoots that were more delicate than asparagus, in parentheses here, pokeweed shoots, milkweed shoots, and peeled burdock stems, in parentheses, a mixed green salad, parentheses, delicate tips of sheep sorrel, the chickweed, and the purslane, in parentheses, in a French dressing, glasses of milk for everyone. For dessert, there were fresh strawberries for everyone, with coffee and cowslip wine for the adults. Everyone enjoyed his dinner, which gave Jerry the impetus to lecture a bit after the children had left for bed. I don't want to be an old bore, but I have to get something off my mind. Each generation follows a different pattern, but they're all human beings. When humans get too far from reality, something jolts them back. Our generation managed to raise big families with little money because we lived close to the land. I don't ask you to raise stock or weave cloth, but people with less than land than you had garden patches during World War II. For $1 or so, you can still get a year's supply of vegetables from your garden. Eat them fresh, and they'll be more vitamin packed than the ones you buy. So you'll be getting more right there. Then can or freeze the surplus for the winter. And if you don't mind my saying so, you both need the exercise of working in the patch. Why, Dad, Violet said indignantly, we haven't gained that much weight. You know very well it's not a question of weight. The medics say lack of exercise is making us soft. And I'm talking about maximum health as well as cheap living. Maybe if you got some exercise, fresh air, and food with vitamins in it, Vi and you wouldn't fall apart from nerves the minute these ups and downs of life hit you. Forgive me for saying it, but when I was a young man with 11 mouths to feed besides my own, Al's unemployment checks would have looked like a fortune. You didn't have these prices to pay either, Alfred objected. I wouldn't pay them now. Instead of going to the grocery store for all staples, I use my ingenuity. You can find a farmer to supply your eggs and cereals, or go to the feed mills. They're less than 5 miles from here, and you can find a list in the phone book. Buy whole grain flour, whole grain breakfast cereals, molasses for sweetening. You can buy even your coffee there. Coffee? Yes, that was rye roasted and ground grains you drank tonight. It'll cost you less than 10 cents a pound in the feed mill, until you can afford to pay $1 a pound for coffee, do with the substitute. Jerry's recipe for coffee: washed rye kernels, dry in oven, either roast until dark in hot oven or brown dark, and this is quicker in heavy pan or on top of the stove. The same method can be used for other country drinks, including barley and oats and soybeans, which were used as a coffee substitute in the Civil War. The roasted shells of acorns were used during World War II by the Germans. Acorns, however, contain tannic acid, which must be boiled out first. When you're camping out and run short of coffee, remember this. Jerry concluded his lecture with, They didn't call them by name when I was a boy, but we ate vitamins and minerals too that get refined out of food today. Good vitamin-rich food is the reason I can outwalk most men of Al's age, and all men of my age. Cheer up. My lecture is almost over. Try to buy as much as possible at the source. Buy in bulk. Swap your labor if you have no money. Make your own products when you can. Then take the money you save and pay off your grocer. That's going to make him happier than if you bought everything there and kept on charging them. I'll even stay overnight and dig the garden for you while Al's looking for work tomorrow. Before Jerry retired, he washed the wheat kernels, dried them in the oven, and ground them to a meal in the coffee grinder. In the morning, he mixed this meal with milk and cooked it for 5 minutes. And Alfred, out of respect for his father-in-law, arose half an hour earlier than usual and ate a man-sized breakfast of wheat cereal, eggs, fruit, and coffee instead of the juice and coffee he was in the habit of gulping. Jerry always says that's why he landed a job that day. When I met Violet, he had a new TV again. They had a new TV again on time payments. As Jerry says, this generation doesn't see the virtue of being debt-free, but they also had a constructive outlook and a flourishing garden patch. Bargain meals without a stove. You need access to a stove to eat most cheaply, but there are ways to cut the cost of eating even if you don't keep house. Canned heat, sterno, was a help to us for a spell in an Indianapolis furnished room. I boiled the breakfast eggs and tea water simultaneously, washing the eggs carefully, putting them in cold water, and bringing it to a boil. When the eggs were at length soft boiled, the tea water was ready. The tea water is ready. In addition, our day's menus included whole grain bread, margarine, cheese, delicatessen coleslaw, cold cuts, milk, fresh fruit, and salad vegetables. Every night, under the cover of darkness, Bill sneaked the shells, tea leaves, etc., to the landlady's garbage can. We did better than that with a hot plate in a New York City furnished room. Because we weren't paying for the fuel, we could make long cooking stews, fricasseed chicken, Spanish rice. Show folk on tour use the working surface of an electric iron turned upside down with the handle anchored firmly. Many a wardrobe trunk in a traveling delicatessen, and actors' hotel rooms become intimate dining nooks. As the management frowns on such practices, meals are made and shared surreptitiously. If you follow suit, remember to make sure that current is available and of the kind your gadget is made for. An AC hot plate will blow the fuses on DC current and vice versa. In my many periods of living on nothing, I have never squandered pennies on eating breakfast in a restaurant. It is the most expensive meal to buy out, considering what you get. 20 cents will purchase only rolls and coffee and oatmeal, or in a cheaper place in cheaper times, coffee and pancakes. This is not a good or balanced enough breakfast to start a day. The most frequent food mistake people make is starting a day with a poor meal. A good breakfast gives a person a feeling of security, and this is doubly important when you're short of money. If breakfast is adequate, you won't start the day depressed due to faulty nutrition, and you'll be better able to cope with the day's problems. It's possible to live on only one meal a day, although the prospect sounds a bit grim. My grandmother had a college student furnace man who contributed his services for a big breakfast, and did that man eat? When he was graduated, he confessed to grandmother that her breakfast had been his only meals. If you have no means of cooking, you can still have an adequate breakfast. In many parts of Europe, cheese is eaten for the first meal of the day. A few oranges will keep in a cold corner of the room or on a shaded windowsill, and instant coffee will mix in cold water. So will powdered skim milk. Use skim rather than whole powdered milk, which goes rancid unless refrigerated. Cold food is nourishing as hot, although a hot cup of something satisfies me more even in hot weather. If you feel the same way and boiling water is not available, hot tap water will dissolve instant coffee. If you have a radiator or heater in your room, you might accomplish a soft-boiled egg. Run the tap water as hot as possible and use the smallest container you can find. A tin can will do. Put your room temperature egg into the hot water and place it on the hottest part of the radiator, and meanwhile take your bath and get dressed, eat your orange, drink your first glass of coffee. If the heater has cooperated, your egg will be soft boiled. If it turns out to be raw, mix the yolk in water and dry skim milk and drink an eggnog. Raw proteins are better for you than cooked anyway. If you have no refrigerator, you can purchase your eggs singly, though cheaper when bought by the dozen. Even a single egg purchased from the grocery is cheaper than an egg bought in a restaurant. Buy your bread at a restaurant outlet or day-old counters of bakeries or groceries. We've bought English muffins for a penny apiece. Since they had to be toasted, it didn't matter that they were stale if they were under a week old. Older than a week, and they were brick hard and had to be run through the meat grinder for use as breadcrumbs. Day-old bread is generally a bigger bargain than week-old, even though the former is reduced in price only a third in contrast to week-old's two-third reduction. Let me read that. Day-old bread is generally a bigger bargain than week-old bread, even though the former is reduced in price only a third in contrast to week-old's two-third reduction. Okay. This is not only because of increasing danger of mold and spoilage, but also because you must toast the very stale bread to eat it, and toasting destroys some of the B vitamin, thiamine, how much depending on the length of the toasting time. When you cannot afford to pay for vitamin supplements, you must be constantly alert to get the maximum supply from your food. Also, read bread labels to get your money's worth. Wheat or wheaten bread is a mixture of wheat and white flour. Whole wheat bread, made only from the whole grain flour, is so labeled. Wheat germ is concentrated embryo of the wheat, is the source of the life-giving vitamins and minerals. It is a great nutritional bargain, and bread containing wheat germ may very well be on the quick sale counter, because the oil in the wheat germ makes it perishable, as milk and meat are perishable. Keep it in the refrigerator or coolest part of your room. This is especially important in hot weather. If you have enough money to eat one meal out, get to the restaurant before the evening menu arrives. Luncheon menus are priced lower for identical dishes. If you're eating all your meals al fresco, tuck a sandwich in your pocket or purse. I've munched happily in palm-filled lobbies, ladies' lounges, station waiting rooms, and, weather permitting, park benches or spots near the water. If you're equipped with as much sheer nerve as a friend of mine, you might eat on the town. Hotels carry bulletin boards with notices of meetings, publicity, luncheons, cocktail parties. My friend dressed to the nines and briefed beforehand from newspapers, invented magazine and press connections, and marched in with an air of being the day's most welcome guest. Gradually she broadened her acquaintanceship and was invited to accompany members of the press to special events. Or you might try talking a glamorous meal as a man I know does. A long list of people invite him over to cook their dinner while they supply the ingredients. Or you can read the rest of this chapter and find many ways of cutting down the food bill that you can convince a friend with a stove and kitchen, but similarly limited finances, to combine resources and kitchen. By combining a basic knowledge of nutrition with information on how to get the necessary elements of a balanced diet in their cheapest form, you can cut your food bill from 50 to 75%, even if you must eat the daily 3 in a restaurant. What you need to live. What you need to live. We need 4 basic food groups daily: milk products, protein, protective foods, grains, along with calcium needed all life long for healthy bones and teeth. Milk supplies about 100 necessary nutrients and is cheaper than other foods in proportion to what it offers. To save money and better your meals, extend its use. All adults should have at least 2 cups of milk per day. milk daily, and children, teenagers, and pregnant women should have twice that, with nursing mothers consuming 6 or more cups daily. This includes milk in cooking and other milk products such as cheese, ice cream, buttermilk, yogurt, etc. The cheapest member of this valuable food group is dried skim milk, called non-fat milk solids. Dry milk is excellent for people who are reducing or on low-fat diets. It is easiest to handle, being light to carry, easy to mix and cook with, convenient to store, and long keeping in dry form if you can keep the container closed. So it attracts water that even on a foggy day an open container will gradually become sticky. As double milk, it is used in conjunction with whole milk, either added dry, 4 tablespoons to each cup of fluid milk to make that twice as rich in milk value, or reconstituted, that is, with water added according to each package directions, and used half and half with whole milk. It will cut your milk bill. Dry milk cannot be substituted for the entire milk needs because due to the heat of processing, it has been changed to a lesser protein. Substitute nourishing and inexpensive flavored milk drinks for high-priced and valueless soda pop, and other soft drinks as molasses milk. Add a tablespoon of... Sorry, this is starting to get confusing here. Substitute nourishing and inexpensive flavored milk drinks for high-priced and valueless soda pop and other soft drinks as in molasses milk. Add a tablespoon of the darkest molasses to a glass of double milk or liquefied skim milk. Blackstrap molasses, the syrup separated in the production of raw cane sugar, is the cheapest bottled sweetener, 19 to 22 cents a pint in groceries, 30 cents a gallon at stock feed mills. Sugar refineries deliver blackstrap in tank trucks to stock mill pumps, and mill workers spray it over the feed. As there is no way of checking the evenness of these lots for impurities, this molasses is sold with the understanding that it is not to be used for human consumption unless further processed. At a saving of $2.10 a gallon, there is great incentive to produce it yourself. I pasteurize it by bringing it to 140 degrees on the jelly thermometer, or bring blackstrap just to the boil. Don't keep it boiling, as that will make it gummy. Although blackstrap has been overrated by people who forget that no member of the sugar family is guiltless of contributing to tooth decay, this dark molasses can be made to contribute calcium, iron, and some vitamins to the diet, which is more than you can say for the other sugars. European Cafe au lait cuts your coffee bill as well as your whole milk bill. Use this for between meals or when you want to cut down your coffee consumption. Boil 2 rounded teaspoons of powdered chicory in 2 cups of water for 5 minutes. Let it settle while you scald half a cup of skim milk. Add the strained chicory sauce. Chicory is the dried, roasted, ground vegetable root so popular down south that better restaurants add it to the coffee. Directions for its use in combination with coffee, including instant coffee and coffee substitutes, are on the chicory box. For a free source of chicory, thus saving about 50 cents a pound, dig up the wild plant from empty lots. Chicory blooms from July to September, growing up to 3 feet tall with beautiful blue daisy-shaped flowers that close around noon on a sunny day. For especially clear drawings of such plants, see Weeds of Lawn and Garden by John M. Fogg, Jr., University of Pennsylvania Press. Choose a rainy day for your digging when the damp ground will let go of the deep roots. Scrub chicory roots, slice them thin, and dry the slices in oven, attic, or sun. Roast them preferably when you are baking to save fuel, or in an outdoor fireplace until the sections turn brown. Then grind in a coffee grinder or in the finest blade of a meat grinder. For 45 tested recipes, including powdered chicory in meat pies, bean burgers, sandwiches, etc., send 5 cents to Heinrich Frank Sons Incorporated, Port Huron, Michigan. 48061. Make skim milk yield extra protein to your diet and help cut your meat bill by using it as stock in a potato soup. Speedy type. Boil 2 cups thin sliced raw potatoes and 1/4 cup finely chopped onion in 1 1/4 cups boiling water. Cook covered 12 to 15 minutes. Mash the potatoes or thicken soup with flour. Add 1 3/4 cups skim milk, 1 tablespoon margarine, dash of soy sauce, cheaper than Worcestershire, 1 teaspoon salt, and a dash of pepper. Heat, sprinkle with chopped parsley and 2 tablespoons food yeast just before serving. Food yeast is pasteurized and in powdered form. It is often called brewer's yeast to distinguish it from baker's yeast. It is extraordinarily rich in B vitamins. Because of its protein and vitamin content, and because it is the cheapest source of vitamin B as a group of B vitamins as a group, it should have a star place on inexpensive menus. Half a pound sells for 51 cents in groceries, and it goes an amazingly long way. Because vitamin B1 thiamine, of which food yeast is one of the best and cheapest sources, is destroyed by heat. Add the yeast after soup is taken from the fire. Add food yeast to gravies, stews, etc. in the same way. Mix it in fruit juices and in your molasses milk drink, and other drinks to make them more nutritious. And be sure to read, quote, Let's Eat Right to Keep Fit by Adele Davis, Harcourt Brace, 1954, for a fascinating discussion of the benefits of tiger's milk, Miss Davis's health-giving food yeast recipe. This book will give you a first-rate course in nutrition. For additional guidance... I don't know if I've been going. Oh, wow. I'm running out of timer. For additional guidance in nutrition and for inexpensive cookbooks featuring economy recipes, write to the Superintendent of Documents, Government Printing Office, Washington, D.C., 20401 for their free price list of booklets. Among other government pamphlets, we recommend Food Values in Common Portions, 1951, 5 cents. Essentials of Adequate Diet, 1957, 15 cents. Nutrition Up to Date up to You, 1960, 15 cents. Fruit and Vegetable Buying Guide for Consumers, 1955, 20 cents. Dry Beans, Peas, Lentils, Modern Cookery, 1957, 15 cents. Potatoes in Popular Ways, 1967, 15 cents. Home Canning of Fruits and Vegetables, 1967, 15 cents. Home Freezing of Fruits and Vegetables, 1967, 20 cents. Be sure to write first. Prices may have changed. To get back to the subject of saving on your milk bill, perhaps you can economize by carrying milk rather than having it delivered, and by finding a grocer who sells milk cheaper in 2-quart or in gallon containers. If you must have the milk delivered, find out if the dairy charges less if you agree to order a given number of quarts regularly. Make sure you get all the vitamins you pay for in milk. Don't leave milk standing in the light in bottles or glasses, as it loses riboflavin, a B vitamin, for which milk is the most important source if you don't make a habit of eating liver or food yeast. Get your milk in wax containers or in dark glass bottles, or make a box for your clear bottles to sit it on the porch. Get your grocer to donate 2 wooden fruit boxes and make of them a case and a lid, or make an insulated box that can double as a carrying case for food if you rent a locker in the ice house. Use 2 cardboard boxes for this, setting the smaller inside the larger. There should be 3 to 4 inches of space for insulation. Fill this space with shredded newspaper or Excelsior. Seal edges with gummed paper and use wooden strips to lengthen and hold box off the floor. Use gummed strips to hold together several layers of corrugated cardboard for a lid. Fasten a handle to the top so that the milkman can take it off easily, and fasten handles to the sides so that you can carry the box easily. Use whipped evaporated milk as a whipped cream substitute. Vitamin D is now added to evaporated milk, which is whole milk, so that it is nutritionally excellent as well as cheap. I know a wealthy woman who loves to invite people to her home-cooked dinners. Although she is a good cook, people hesitate to accept her invitations, and if they accept, they firmly refuse the soup. This could be because the lady takes along a paper bag when she dines out and snags the bones off everyone's plate. When she gets home, she chops the bones into inch pieces, adds them to other saved chopped bones or chicken feet cheese wrangled from the part store and chopped and browned in a little fat. When she has about 2 pounds of bones, she puts them into her pressure cooker with 2 quarts of water, 2 teaspoons of salt, and 4 tablespoons of vinegar, and cooks them for 3/4 of an hour at 10 pounds pressure. When cold and skimmed, this bone soup is a thick, clear jelly that rivals any calf's foot jelly that you can buy for a fancy price, and makes a calcium-rich soup base. There are 3 things this lady's finicky guests don't know: that boiling water sterilizes, and to make soup stock you must boil the water, that all over Europe bones are reused in soup. Indeed, Professor Henry C. Sherman in Food and Health, Macmillan Press, 1947, says that vinegar and sweet-sour methods of releasing calcium are a Chinese method of cooking bones so that they can be eaten. Last, the lady's guests do not realize, although they should, that those who accumulate wealth have done so partly because they have the ability to acquire as much as possible free. You can make bone soup the delicious and hearty base for split pea soup made from dry split peas, and add vegetable protein rich legumes to small amounts of meat to enable you to cut down on more expensive animal protein. All legumes are relatively inexpensive and are vitamin and mineral rich. A cupful of cooked beans contains about half the day's needs for iron, and are, like other legumes, a good source of B vitamins. The soybean, which is the most nutritious of all the dried beans, twice as rich, twice as high in protein, and proportionally higher in vitamins, provides the poorer Chinese people with their main source of protein in the form of a cheese-like substance, bean curd. I have bought bean curd in Chinatown for 20 cents a cake, fried with mushrooms or bean sprouts. It is delicious. If you want recipes for dishes Americans associate with China, send to La Choi Division of Beatrice Foods, Archbold, Ohio 43502 for the attractive free cookbook Art and Secrets of Chinese Cookery. To keep dried legumes from canceling out their bargain by sending up the fuel bill, follow these cooking saving tips. Soak peas and beans, but not split peas and lentils before cooking. Never throw soaking water away. It has flavor, vitamins, minerals. Use it for cooking the legumes. For further time saving, first boil peas or beans 2 minutes in the water you are to soak them in. This will cut down cooking time 1 hour and is helpful even in overnight soaking. This will cut down cooking time 1 hour and is helpful in the overnight soaking. Cook beans almost tender before adding tomatoes, catsup, vinegar, salt, or fat, all of which delays the bean softening. Don't add soda. Although it shortens cooking time, there is a possibility it damages the B vitamins in spite of the legume's tough skin. Cut baking time by 2/3 by simmering seasoned beans on the stove without a lid for 2 hours. Finish them off in the oven for the final baking, or simmer them still longer and brown them under the broiler. Beans can be served in traditional Boston form or as a hearty minestrone or chili dish. Boston brown bread or tortillas as bean accompaniments are examples of a principal nutrition that more of us on inexpensive diets should know about. It is simply this: combining incomplete proteins. Vegetable proteins may strengthen both proteins and the meal because the amino acid lacks in each may be supplied by the other. Brown bread uses whole wheat flour, containing vegetable protein to supplement the bean protein. Tortillas containing the whole cornmeal and enriched flour supplement the bean protein. Apply the same principle to minestrone by adding cooked whole wheat kernels. Wheat will cost you approximately 4 cents a pound at the mill. Incidentally, Mexican or herb or specialty cookbooks are a source of imaginative yet essentially simple to make bean dishes. To learn many new ways of cooking foods with an exotic flavor and to give your meals imagination, get a good basic cookbook such as Doubleday's Round the World Cookbook by Meyer Waldo. The most important proteins in any diet are the animal proteins. Ideally, they should be eaten raw to benefit you the most, as cooking destroys part of their value, hence the benefit of clams, oysters, etc. Other than these, raw fish is a Japanese delicacy we're not likely to adopt. But fish is usually much cheaper than meat, and its protein just as nourishing. Did you know that simply by asking for them, you can get free with your order of fish all of the fish heads your dealer has? Make of these plus the tails, the fins, the large backbones if you have them, a stock base for fish sauces, casseroles, and fish soups. Follow the method of the meat bone soup, and if you have a garden, add the bones to your compost heap as did our Indians. Fish any day but Friday. All right, 10 more minutes. All right. I'm running out of data space, video to video. I'm trying to make space in my phone, but it's a little difficult, you know, things being what they are. So I'm going to be stopping halfway through page 13, and then uploading. Fish any day but Friday. Fish is lowest in price when it's freshest, early in the week, because there's a large supply on the market when the catch has come in. Monday is generally the heaviest supply day for fish in the city. You can still get bargains on Tuesday, Wednesday, and perhaps on Thursday. A small plump fish has more food on it than a large thinner fish of the same species. If you venture into the exotic, you can pick up squid and mussels for a song in harbor cities. Consult fish cookbooks and foreign cookbooks at your library for methods of dishing up bargains and delicacies. The remarkable egg gives you the highest quality protein plus more calcium than most meats offer, and iron, vitamin A, B vitamins, vitamin D, all at low cost. Eggs are usually cheapest in spring and summer. If you're mathematically minded, remember that when the smallest size egg is less than 80% the price of the next size, the smaller is the better buy. Brown eggs and white have the same food value, so buy the cheaper. If you live near the source of the supply, get cracked eggs at a fraction of the other eggs' cost. You can boil even cracked eggs by wrapping them individually in wax paper, twisting the eggs of the paper securely. Eggs keep best under refrigeration, stored in a covered egg box with the large end of the egg uppermost. Eggs are, that's funny, you don't, this is the opposite of what they store at. Read that again. Eggs keep best under refrigeration, stored in a covered egg box with the large end of the egg uppermost. Eggs are so versatile that they can be the basis of your breakfast, the mainstay of your everyday meals, or the proudest company fare in the form of soufflés. One more. Where cheapest is best. To those of us who think of protein mainly in terms of meat, it's news that the best meats are the cheapest. I'm speaking, of course, of variety or organ meats. Did you know that healthy primitive tribes who, in contrast to the poorly fed ones, have nutritional lore handed down from their elders prize liver most highly? It may astonish those who are sold on carrots as a source of vitamin A, the quote eyesight vitamin, to learn that liver has more than twice as much of it. In fact, liver has the real vitamin A. Carrots possess only its vegetable form, provitamin A, which has to be converted by the body to real vitamin A before it can be assimilated. It's gotta throw an editor's note in here. It was recently suggested that this whole carrots for eyesight might be a World War II propaganda holdover because meat was so hard to come by. Liver is very rich in B vitamins, has more vitamin C than many fruits, and if you count fish livers, possesses vitamin D too. It is rich in iron and calcium and has the best quality proteins. Even on a budget, you can afford to eat liver to keep healthy, because the cheapest liver, pork, has the most iron. I used to hate liver until I learned to eat it as nearly raw as possible. Heat or overcooking not only robs liver of vitamins, but makes it as tough as shoe leather and as difficult to digest. Lamb's liver, which is 39 cents a pound at this writing, is milder and more tender than pork and is higher in iron than calf's liver, the $1 a pound type. The best way I've found to cook lamb is to lay it on a bed of gently sautéed or steamed onion rings and put the lid on the frying pan until the liver is just heated through and has changed from red to pinky brown. Season the dish immediately before serving. Pork liver and steer liver taste best in casseroles and loaves. Meat loaves and casseroles are especially adaptable to budgets because they can stretch in the same time they're adding nutrition to the menus. Use them to conceal leftovers, leftover rice, cereal, noodles, or breadcrumbs, leftover egg yolks or whites, leftover cereal tops chopped fine, leftover cooked or raw vegetables, or leftover vegetable water from canned or cooked vegetables, or the mineral-rich vegetable juice you get by boiling discarded peelings and ends of vegetables in raw water for 20 minutes or so. Add dry skim milk to give extra meat value to the loaf. Use your imagination to give the loaves variety. All right. It's going to be the end of the first part of chapter 1.